All right. So we are here. The day is finally here. We have Jaja and YaQutullah here, and they are going to talk with us about nutrition. I did a webinar not too long ago that was supposed to encompass nutrition, but we got so many questions about nutrition. And then as I thought about it, I was like, that's such a broad topic that really needed its own time. So we talked about fueling specifically, and this one is dedicated to overall nutrition. And I'm excited about this one because it's not just for triathletes. I think it's for everybody, to help you just live your best life, not just as it relates to triathlon. So one of the reasons I pulled these two young ladies together was I've watched both of them and their journey as it relates to nutrition. Jaja, it started as her own personal journey, and she shared that journey with everyone else. And now she's the owner of a business called The Exposed Vegan, and she's literally one of the go-tos in the tri community when it comes to nutrition. I can't even remember where I met YaQutullah, but I do know she's a member of Muslimas Indoor. I think that's when we first really started engaging. She is just one of the rocks in the Atlanta run community and the Islamic community. She is a licensed dietitian. And I just wanted to bring them on to talk about overall nutrition because not only are they both passionate about what they do. Oh, we have a lot more people wanting to join. Let me let everyone in. A lot, not necessarily divergent, but different schools of thought as it relates to nutrition. So I thought it was good not to just hear one script, but just hear their different philosophies, how they're different, and how they suit your lifestyle. So that's why I'm excited to have both of them here. So the first thing I wanted to do was, one, how did both of you get into nutrition and making nutrition a part of your passion and a part of your life?
So I can start with that one. First of all, thank you, Khadijah, for having us. This is such an honor. And I know you didn't say how we met, but I definitely stalked you for time in the triathlete community. I was so excited when I finally met Khadijah in person. I was just talking. And she said, "What's your name?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Jaja, and I just love you." And so it is such an honor to be a part of this with you. So thank you for arranging this. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so excited to, I feel like my co-host is my new sister. So thank you for bringing us both together. This is very exciting. So going to your question, how did I get started? Well, as most people know with triathletes, which I am, nutrition is definitely that fourth discipline that I learned from bumps in the road that I needed to get my nutrition right to complete a race successfully. And then I also learned from different ailments. I do have arthritis in my knee. I broke both of my legs when I was 17, and I found out from the doctor that I definitely generated a lot of arthritis. And to avoid different things like knee surgery, I was told I should keep my weight down, and that I needed to change my nutrition and to do things like be careful of inflammation, or I could, take injections or take medication or have knee surgery. So I chose nutrition. I felt like that was the easier thing for me to do, and it would be great for my family. I have 3 children and a husband that travels, and so it just became a whole lifestyle for us. So I'll pass on.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much for putting this together, Khadijah. I was telling Jaja earlier, we were looking at her kitchen. I said I loved her kitchen setup. We met in 2013 at the Rock and Roll Savannah Marathon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And that's when I also met Yelene.
Yes.
And she got up and did a 15-mile run to get her day started. So that was interesting. Met Khadijah there. She did the half. I think we just did the 5K, but it was a great experience. My first time at a destination race. As far as nutrition for me, I became very interested in nutrition early on, elementary, high school. My dad actually passed from a heart attack. And I became very, interested attending appointments with him and things like that. And I said, you know what, from early on, I really want to be involved in preventative nutrition. So I got involved with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. I did my master's in nutrition, undergrad and master's. And then I went on to do certifications in adult weight management and some other things, including integrative and functional nutrition. My philosophy, are we at philosophy? Can I talk a little bit about that, or?
I mean, if you'd like to, yeah.
Practicing for 14 years in the Atlanta, Chicago, and Tennessee area. I'm very passionate about nutrition because I understand nutrition is very broad, and no matter your background or lifestyle or dietary approach, I think it's very important that we approach it from a evidence-based, user-friendly perspective, and looking at resources overall that can help us, that are based in evidence, and to have a community and coaches that are able to help you put 2 and 2 together, right? So that you can, fuel your best life, really. That's all I have.
Okay. So I know it seems like both of
philosophy question.
Well, I'd like to, and it's funny because I knew Jaja, that part of the reason that you became so passionate about nutrition was your experience with your health, and even now, how does it impact you? Does that still guide your philosophy? Tell me how it impacts you overall, and even just with snacking. How does it impact you overall?
I realized during different race seasons, we get to the end of the year and you get to December or maybe even around Thanksgiving time, and I was just thinking like, oh, all the races are done. I'm about to go buck wild. And just eat whatever. I've been on this whole, journey around my nutrition. But it became around Thanksgiving. I'm going to pull out all kinds of stuff. I'm going to make baked macaroni and cheese and all this other stuff. And then I realized I would get sick. I didn't feel well. I couldn't keep up with the kids. I was sleeping a lot. I was bloated. I felt like I'm about to have a baby again. And then my knee would start hurting. Then all of that pain would come back. And I was like, okay. And then you get into New Year's resolution. All right, I'm going to get rid of that stuff again. And I feel good. And then after 4 years of the cycle, it's like, what are you doing? And I had Ironman Cozumel, which Leslie said we should not do dairy leading up to the race, which I felt amazing. I went to Cozumel. There was such amazing food. And I just went buck wild before race day. And on that course, I was so sick. I was throwing up on the bike and the run. I was in pain. My stomach was hurting from so many different things. I had the water there. But as I dissected race day, when you have things that are not successful, you start to look back and do your steps and determine, what do I need to change? And after going to the doctor, I realized, okay, a woman over 40, there's a couple of things I need to change. The salt is definitely things I need to watch. I need to watch sodium. I need to stay out of the aisles. I need to eat a lot more fresh vegetables so that I can move my bowels. There's just all these things that I didn't have to think about when I was in my 20s. But when you're 40, you really have to think about all that stuff that's sitting in there. How do I get rid of all this? And it wasn't just the exercise. It was what I was putting in my mouth that was so important. So I decided 12/31, I'm getting rid of dairy, I'm getting rid of meat, and I just became vegan. And I immediately lost 8 pounds within 2 months. I am now down about 16 pounds since 12/31. I've stayed in that range. but I feel so much better. Like I have so much more energy, and so much with my body feels better. The bloating that was there all the time, like I took a before and after, and I just feel great. And my family, some have joined me a part of the journey. My middle child is vegan, and the rest of my family, they joined in several different ways. So it totally changed our life. I'd say that. Stumbling for several times.
I saw those ribs Mr. Porter had, and I was concerned. But I see he's
vegetables, but I also had the ribs. So, he still goes through his own journey, but I definitely had to make a change for myself.
So that kind of leads us into philosophy. I know that we have two different philosophies. So YaQutullah, and let's come back to the vegan. But YaQutullah, what is your philosophy, your overall philosophy on nutrition?
Overall, I like to approach it from a non-diet approach, right? So you see a lot of these fad diets out there. New Year's resolution come around, and again, we're on another diet, right? If all these fad diets worked, then why are we on a different one every time January 1st comes around, right? So a lot of it, you have to kind of question the approach. Why jump on the bandwagon and do all these different things when they don't work, right? Instead of focusing on strategic, simple approaches that work, right? It's interesting that Jaja, she mentioned being in a household where both spouses are not vegan, right? So then you have to adjust to that as well, because my husband's not vegan. But I make sure that we include a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that. I think, my philosophy is a realistic philosophy, and realizing, I know working with a lot of my clients, you have to look at it from not a blanket one size fits all, but really looking at what works for the individual. So I like it really to approach it from that perspective, and looking at identifying what is the overall goal. We all have different goals, right, when it comes to your health and wellness, and being able to approach it from a realistic perspective, and set goals and be able to reach those goals. Sometimes you find things that work, and that's great. And sometimes you find things that need to be tweaked or readjusted, and being able to do that, whether or not you're vegan or pescatarian or flexitarian or whatever it is, finding that nutrition prescription that works for you.
Yeah. And I tell people that too. A lot of people, I've had people at work ask me about, oh, well, what's your diet? What do you eat? And I was like, well, first of all, I probably eat twice as many calories as you will need to consume because of what I do every day. And then also my diet is focused on one, energy level, because between my job, my kids, and my training, and the stuff I just throw on my back because I do and I probably shouldn't, I'm looking at energy level and performance. So that's people recognizing what their goals are and being honest about who they are as a person is very important. And I like what Jaja said about age. I'm a little bit older than Jaja. I'm not going to say how much, but yeah, your age has a lot to do with it. I was like a 10-year-old when I was 20, so I know I can't eat and do the things I did when I was 20. So yeah, that's extremely good advice. It's not about a diet, it's about your lifestyle. Yeah. So Jaja, tell us a little bit about your philosophy and why it works for you.
So for me, I just had to make a lifestyle change. Again, I'm avoiding knee surgery, and I was told what it would take to do that. Two, I like food. So I like to eat. I like colorful food. I mean, I like to throw down, and I like to cook. And some of the things that I realized, like, oh, how am I going to do this? I like ice cream. So I recognized I had to figure out what worked for me. I found non-dairy ice cream, different advice from different doctors. I think people asked about cheese. I found non-dairy cheese. So I had to figure out, like, how can I have this lifestyle that works for me, but that's also good for my body so that I can be sticking around for a long time. I recognize that there's just so much that's in the aisles that, which we may talk about, that increases diseases, that I want to be here. And we've lost a lot of family members during this time, and a lot of it contributes to what we're eating. Things that we don't feel well, a lot of it contributes to what we're putting in our mouth. And I recognize that as I was like eating well and then stopped, I feel horrible. Eating well, stopped, and I feel horrible. Like there's obviously a pattern, and I had to stop going with that diet and stop doing this and doing that. I had to just make a lifestyle change, and I feel fantastic. And so that's why we started a business, to share more with other people what I've learned. And just for me, it's just a lifestyle. But I want good food. So I had to learn over time that good, colorful food that tastes good, how to do that. And I had to teach myself that and research so I can make a lifestyle change and, not, go up and down with the different diet regimens, if you will.
You've said this 3 times, and probably most of the people on this call get what you're saying, but stay out of the aisles. What does that mean?
So what I realized as I was in the aisles, like I like beans, but when I turn that can around and I see everything that they're doing to season those beans, I was like, okay, sodium, 400 grams, like what? And that's where my stomach started getting big. And I realized that I need to stay off the sodium because that increases inflammation. That would make my knee hurt. Like after a couple of miles, I'm in pain. And so I had to change things that I was doing. And so when I'm saying in the aisles, you really need to look at things that are processed, that are not naturally grown and made, not just organic, just things in cans. What are they doing to preserve that food versus you getting a bag in an Instapot, and in 20 minutes, you can just put your own herbs in there and make yourself some beans, which I'm doing right now. So staying out the aisle is just naturally making something and looking at what you're eating. If it's not something that's grown, look at the instructions. If you have a hard time reading it, it's probably not something that you should put in your body. If you're not clear that God really made that grown somewhere, I just felt like I shouldn't eat it. If I can't pronounce it and I'm pretty smart, then I probably shouldn't be eating it.
And I come from a family, I would be talked about in several different languages if my beans came out of a can. You know that.
So yeah, that's what I mean, out of the aisle.
Frijoles de una lata?
That's funny. She mentions the aisles. We did grocery store tours, right? And we had a lot of our clients come in, and a lot of our clients are ex-military. So the military cooked all their food. They lined up, they got their food, breakfast, lunch, dinner. They didn't really cook, right? When they were home, their family cooked and they ate. So a lot of it was looking at, how do I go shopping? Just the basics. And when you're looking at the aisles, of course, you're going to have your processed foods. And then, of course, you have your fruits and vegetables on the outside aisles. So not only, really reading those labels are so important, looking at what's in it, right? Because we also have, some low income families, and a lot of times they may have resource restrictions or whatever, and helping to teach them how to eat better. Okay, we have college students. How do they eat on a budget? Right? Oftentimes with college students, you have that freshman 15 and you're gaining weight away from home, right? Because mom's not cooking anymore. You're out there kind of, on a meal plan or shopping for yourself and your roommate or whatever. But really just looking at how to navigate grocery shopping, right? For those who, are able to support community-supported agriculture or have access to local farms, community farmers markets. Some of our farmers, I know Bread and Butter Farms and Truly Living Well and Glen Rose Gardens are a few here in the Atlanta area, really also navigating how to support locally grown, local agriculture, to get some of those fruits and vegetables as well. Farmers markets, really looking at not just, I'm going to rely on Kroger's, but you do have other options to identify a lot of your plant-based meal planning strategies.
So one of the things I'd like to do is, both of you are obviously excited about what you're doing. And both of you, I have clearly seen how you've made nutrition and sharing nutrition with the community as part of your life. But I'd like you to take a moment just to talk about what makes you excited about what you're doing. And what's your favorite recipe? And then let's go into the demos, everybody. So we have a treat. They're going to do a quick cooking demo for us. And I want to make sure that I leave a lot of time for Q&A, because as I look at the one, we have quite a few people on the call right now. And two, everybody on this call is not a triathlete. I see some runners. I see some people who aren't even athletes at all. So I want to give everybody a chance to ask some questions of these young ladies. So what makes you excited, and what's your favorite meal?
Okay, my favorite meal I'm gonna demo today is the tofu scramble. I love to make that after early morning workouts. I'm a little crazy. I work out really early in the morning, but that's just so I can get it done before the kids get up. So I love making that one. It's pretty flexible and you can kind of change ingredients, which I'm going to show. And again, what makes me excited is colorful, good food. And I like big bowls of things. I don't want to just do salad all day long. I didn't become a vegan just to have salad. So that is just not something that I do. But what I get excited about food, especially after a good workout, I'm like, yes, I earned this. I'm about to throw down. I just don't want to be sick afterwards. And so that's why I had to change my lifestyle. But I get excited about colorful, good food, put my feet up, have a bowl, and I go in.
All right, YaQutullah.
All right, so I think I'll do my favorite foods. I have a lot of favorite foods because I love to eat. All right, I love lentil stew. And especially this time of year, I love like the soups and stews. I also like, I guess what they call Buddha bowls, because you can put like so many different things in the bowl. And you can kind of make it your own. You can flavor it the way you want to. I always joke with my husband. I say, my top 3 favorite seasonings or spices, herbs are like my onions, my garlic, my smoked paprika, my nutritional yeast. I love it. And I always find a way to try to put those in everything that I cook. In addition to those recipes, today I'm actually going to do a demo for a really quick snack, I guess, like that I use sometimes when I do my long runs. And it's called a power date ball. Really simple stuff you can make and kind of take with you on your long runs. But I also get excited when I'm able to really work with people and help them really identify a strategy that works for them. And then I'm also able to see the before and after. So they might come and they have like, high A1C diabetes. And then I'm able to see, 6 months later when they're able to bring their A1C down and reduce medication or come off medication. So that gets me excited because it makes me feel like, oh my God, I was helpful. I was able to help somebody kind of change up their total trajectory. So that also gets me excited.
Okay. All right. So we are going to get started with Jaja, and I know that YaQutullah needs to make a quick change and head to the kitchen. But while she's getting ready, I think my favorite things are, and I don't know if you want to really call these meals, but I like avocado and egg whites. I know that sounds like, is that a meal? I eat that all the time for breakfast. And I also like salmon and salad. So, but I don't eat salmon very much.
That's a meal.
It's
a meal. That's make for Zion. I often make myself a tofu scramble and I have avocado here. So yes, he does like to pop his too. with avocado. So yeah, and Jay would probably be down with the salmon. That's what he's been doing a lot lately. So you could just come over and stay with us, Katie. Fit right in.
Who's the extra kid? Why does the kid have gray hair?
So I'm gonna get started. And Katie, you can welcome to talk to me while things are.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you what I'm putting in here. So what I did was I pre-did this because I wanted to leave lots of time for questions.
Okay.
So what I put in the pan was olive oil. Another little secret I do is I get this at the dollar store. I have 1 million of them, and I put olive oil in there so I can just grab it and put it around. I find this very useful. We have this outside. For when Jay's on the grill, put some water out there. So these are very handy at dollar stores.
Okay. I use the big jugs of olive oil. I need to get those.
Yeah. So instead of you getting the jug and pulling stuff out, I like things to be easy. So I cut up some onion and I put that in there. I start the onion first because I don't like soggy vegetables. So there's other things that I'm going to do last. The next thing that I'm going to add in is some cut green bell pepper. Adding that next. So other things that I cut up are, I love mushrooms.
Yes, me too. I like mushrooms. Oh, my kids love mushrooms too.
I'm telling you, you could come stay with us. And like I said, I love colorful food. So I have different peppers here. I have yellow, red, orange. I'm gonna add those in later. I went outside because I have a new garden. If you have time, I could take the phone outside. But I cut up a bunch of herbs that were outside. So kale, maybe oregano. I have sage out there, tons of things. And so I chop those up really finely. I also, I always chop things up and throw it in the kids' food all the time so they don't realize, like, what's the green stuff? It's fine. So a good way to give the kids greens, just chop it up, put it in between rice. I put it in Zion's eggs. It's just like in potatoes. So I love to chop things up, just put in a bowl. And after things are good marinade, I just throw it on there and they're good to go. The digestive system is great. I mashed up this kind of with my fingers, some organic, extra firm tofu. So for folks, I'm adding all of this stuff because it doesn't have any flavor. So I need it to have flavor, and I'm going to show you how you make it have color, extra firm, otherwise it's too soft. I also have my sea salt. I think we talked about a little bit nutritional yeast. Mm-hmm. I have turmeric, which is good, again, for inflammation. And I have black salt. Now, those things aren't required. Black salt gives us that egg flavor. So for folks who are like, I don't want to give up eggs, it starts to taste a little bit like that with this. Like it even smells like it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I learned that too. And then I have some black beans. I'm gonna take it out of the Instapot, but this is what I was talking about. Bag of beans. This is like worth the 4 cans. And when we talked about folks that can afford, doing a little more so that they can afford 4 cans for like 97. This is more economical. I have a ton in the cabinet. So I do this more versus getting the cans. Because at first I was doing the low sodium. Low sodium just meant just a little less sodium to me. So this doesn't have anything unless I put stuff in there. So, and you can kind of look up depending on how you make them, whether you make it on a pot or you make it on an Instapot. I'm looking at questions too. So we'll come back to that.
I saw somebody asked a question about nutritional yeast. YaQutullah loves to use that, and as she does her demo, I'm gonna have her talk about that and also talk about the benefits of using nutritional yeast.
Thank you. We'll come back to that. I love it because it gives like a little cheesy flavor.
Okay.
I learned that when I was because once you decide to change your diet, you're like, how can I make this taste like something I had before? So I got nutritional yeast because I was like, I love macaroni and cheese. Like, how do I keep, the things that I still love with just different ingredients? So nutritional yeast is one of those things that you can do. And then non-dairy cheddar cheese. There's so many different ways. And now it has definitely a different taste, but it was close enough where I was going to do that. So, all right, so I've sauteed. Hopefully you guys can see the pan.
And Mr. Porter just joined. So we're going to ixnay on the Ibs Ray.
Katie was talking about you earlier in your ribs. Okay, so I have onions. They're a little soft. The next thing I'm going to add is my mushrooms. And again, I chopped these up before just for the interest of time.
Now, do you just lightly coat the pan with the oil, or how much oil do you put in?
That's why I love this, so that I can I did a little circle in the beginning and I kind of go back. I'm not frying food, I'm sauteing it, so I'm going a little quick just because it's a demo. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I normally keep it low so that I don't have to add a lot of oil. And there's definitely different benefits of oil, so maybe we can go over that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm lightly coating it. I'm not frying it, I'm sauteing. Again, I'm letting my mushrooms get a little soft.
And I'm gonna tell you the same thing I said at the last webinar. I haven't been to church since I was like 18 or 19 years old. But I think they say the same thing at the mosque. Take your time.
Yeah, take your time. They do. Okay. So I have beans in an Instapot. I'm gonna undo this. I'm gonna take my beans out of the Instapot in a second. And again, what I normally do, because I love to throw beans in everything, mm-hmm. What I normally do is I make an Instapot worth, and then I can use them throughout the week. I think it's good for a couple. So as mentioned earlier, if you're gonna do a Buddha bowl and you can add so many different things to it, I add beans and other things that I can make. Okay. The next thing I'm gonna do, and you'll notice that I'm kind of doing one different ingredients at a time. I don't like soggy peppers. Now I'm adding in the herbs that I got. But again, these are greens. You can do spinach. Some people say that kale doesn't agree with them. Any type of green leafy vegetable is definitely encouraged to keep yourself regular.
Yeah. And I know too, everybody's all into this kale thing. I guess it's kind of bougie. You can eat collard greens.
Right. We're encouraging a green vegetable to help keep yourself regular. So I have kale because I grew it outside. I was surprised that it was going to like it, and I can go outside and pick it. But spinach is good. Yep. Any type of, mixed greens you got, I would chop them up and put that in there. Okay.
I ran out of spinach last week and threw some collard greens into one of my smoothies, and my son was like, "Did you just put greens?" He's like, "Mom, you're ghetto." I was like, "Yeah, like whatever."
You're like, as long as I got it. So now I've added in those peppers, nice and colorful.
Yeah.
See? Okay. Cut this a little bit more. This is not even taking long. We're almost done. Okay. All right. So the next thing that I'm gonna do. You have beans for me? Just put them in. Put those beans to the side. I'll add those later because they're already cooked. So I'm not gonna cook the beans. I already made them in Instapot. It'll be something that I add later. I can now add in the tofu. Again, it was crumbled. It's kind of like making scrambled eggs. Now I'm gonna show you, like I'm mixing all this in. I will soon add in,
oh, and the beans are still steaming.
Yeah, they just came out of the Instapot. Well, Jason Jr. was helping me with my checklist of what I needed. And he's like, you don't have any beans. And I was like, put this in the pot. But it was quick, it was 20 minutes. I ran in the door and I realized there was something that I needed. So now what I'm gonna add in, and honestly, I really don't do that much salt, but since we're recording, I add a little sea salt. And I add in turmeric. So you're gonna start to see the color starts to change. I love turmeric, so that's why you see why I added a lot. I'm gonna add in this nutritional yeast. And then a little bit of the black salt, not too much. Just a little, I find the flavor can be a little overpowering. So that was just a little bit. Now I'm gonna mix it. You may notice it's starting to take a new egg color.
Yeah, this could be for breakfast or
lunch
or a lunchtime thing.
Yeah. And normally when I come in from like a bike ride or run in the morning, half will be for breakfast as a bowl. Sometimes I can put it over even lettuce if I just wanted a few more greens. And then the other half I can have for lunch. So I just put it to the side, put it in the refrigerator and heat it up for lunch and a snack. And you probably see that it's like a yellow-orange color. Now the last thing I'm gonna add in is the beans. Like I said, I made that in the Instapot. They're already cooked. And again, whatever ingredients you like. Nikis was like, told me earlier, like, don't forget to add some jalapenos. Now I don't do jalapenos, but whatever you like to put in your bowl, just go at it.
Yeah, my kids love spicy foods. They're funny.
Yeah.
I've had friends over and, you know, serve them some of the food that I make. And they're like, are you trying to kill us? And my kids are just smacking their lips like, oh, Mom. Hilarious.
So I'm just about done.
Oh, wow. That was literally less than 10 minutes.
I know.
So now I'm gonna top it with some avocado.
That looks really good. Mmm.
And then while she's cooking, I'm eating.
Oh, I hear that. But you got to make sure you post that recipe, Jaja.
Yeah. Will do.
I will add that to the when I post the link out to the podcast and the YouTube video. I'll make sure that we share the share their information and their recipe. So YaQutullah, are you ready?
In here.
Oh my God, that looks delicious.
And I'm the one who asked about the cheese. I don't do any dairy. I don't drink milk. I do eat egg whites, but I don't like ice cream. I've never really been an ice cream person, but that cheese.
All right, handing it over to you, sis.
All right, great job, Jaja. Looks delicious.
All right, so what are we cooking here today?
All right, so today what we're doing date power balls.
Okay.
Real simple.
I love dates.
Sometimes I'll just do this like the night before, chill them in the refrigerator, take them with me on my run. They're really easy to do.
And this would be good for the cyclists on the call too. You can throw a couple of these in your back pocket.
Throw a couple of these in. A lot of times don't have like cereal bars and some of that other stuff out there, but these you can make your own. And then you can control more of the ingredients that you put into it. right? So sometimes people are like, well, how do I make my own granola? Or how do I, kind of make my own kind of power balls if I want to take them with me? This recipe is actually from Natural Delights, Medjool, and I really love their dates. I'm using the fresh dates, pitted organic. So no pesticides, no added sugar. Dates are pretty sweet on their own. You don't really have to add any sugar. Some people like to add honey, but again, dates are already sweet. So what I do is I add about 6 dates. I also add oats. So you can do oats, you can do bran. I actually get a lot of item bulk from farmers market.
Is that the South DeKalb Farmers Market? I see.
DeKalb Farmers Market. You can buy them any supermarket, but DeKalb, they have a better price point. So I like to buy a lot of my items in bulk, especially when it comes to my grains, and it comes to my beans, and then I'm able to put them into smaller containers to portion them out. So what I did was I put about a cup of oats and portioned everything out, and then I added about a half a cup of bran. This is actually going to be a great source of fiber, okay? And then I mixed that over in there along with about 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. When we talk about peanut butter, what I really like about the peanut butter is that the peanut butter is not only going to give you the carbs you need, but it's also going to give you the protein you need. And for your 2 tablespoons, you're going to get about 8 grams of protein, right? Yeah. You do have the option of using any nut butter. I know some people have allergies, right? So you do have to address that. So you want to look at what nut butter is going to fit you, right? I like the creamy natural peanut butter because there are only 2 ingredients, and that's roasted peanuts and salt, right? So I use the peanut, it's only 130 milligrams, right? When it comes to sodium, you want to make sure that your sodium content is less than, low sodium is considered 140 milligrams or less, right? So you can use your peanut butter, or you can use almond butter or cashew butter. They do have places where you can go and make your own butter. So some of you guys go to Sprouts or Whole Foods where you can kind of press your own butter. That's fine.
I think they do that at South DeKalb now as well. There's a stand you can point out what you want, and they run it through that grinder.
They run it through, right? So you can get your own butter made. And if that's an issue, a lot of them are non-GMO. They're not, you don't want any added sugars and things like that. Just the whole natural is what you want to do. What I also added was, you have your choice of seeds, right? But I chose the organic hemp seeds, right? You can do chia seeds, you can do flax seeds, that's fine. I chose the organic hemp seeds. They're heart healthy, and they also give you about 9 grams of protein per serving. So that's about 3 tablespoons. So I put 3 tablespoons in there as well. And then I also crushed about 2 ounces of almonds. I love almonds. You can use any nut or no nut at all if you have nut allergies, right? I actually did 1 ball. I'm going to do the rest of them. And then I basically mixed everything up. And you guys can kind of see what it looks like in the bowl, right? Kind of looks like granola. But what keeps it together is the peanut butter and the dates, right? So you have that consistency. And then basically you just ball it out. I mean, you literally just put them into balls. They're really easy to kind of make. Just ball them out. And this is going to give you probably about 7 or 8 balls. And it's funny because I trialed it the other day, and I was like, I think I need more dates, or I needed some more peanut butter because I wanted it to taste a certain way. So you just ball it out. And I actually put it on a container or a dish that has wax paper, because the wax paper, I can just put it in the refrigerator and chill it. And then I can, kind of eat the balls when I'm ready. You can also use these over in your oatmeal. If you wanted to add them to your oatmeal or whatever, that's fine.
I can see this being a good snack too for those long training days, because sometimes when I'm training for a full, you have 2 or 3 of those training days that are literally almost as long as the Ironman themselves. Now, I'm a huge proponent of a full liquid fueling plan when it comes to my racing. But sometimes on those training days, you just need a little bit of solids. I can see that it has a lot of energy in it, and it has a little bit of protein to kind of sustain you.
Right.
So I could see doing that.
So you got your protein, you got your fiber in here, You got your heart healthy nuts and seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great to get the kids involved too. So if you have kids and they like to cook with you in the kitchen, I mean, it's a fun activity to kind of get them engaged as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this one, I actually got about 7.
And how many calories are in approximately?
Okay,
I know it's not.
So each one of these balls are about 90 calories.
Okay.
And that's kind of what they look like. So you guys can see what they look like.
Okay.
Yep. And it really just depends on what you use as far as your fat. Depends on if you're using almond butter or peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what type of seeds you're using as well, because you want to count the monounsaturated and the polyunsaturated fats as well. If you're
okay, so
if you're looking at overall, fat, and you have good fats, you have your heart healthy fats, and that's fine. But you just want to, it depends on what ingredients you use.
Okay. And
I was going to touch upon your question about the, I think it was nutritional yeast, right?
Yeah. So we had a question about the nutritional yeast.
Nutritional yeast, and there's a lot of information out there. Nutritional yeast, a lot of times when we're saying, hey, we want to make sure that we're including our plant-based options. You want to make sure that you're including plant-based sources of B vitamins. So that's why I use nutritional yeast in addition to it tasting great and it tastes like cheese and I want to put it on my popcorn. It's also going to be a source of B vitamins. So, your B6 and things like that.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that either.
It's really easy to just kind of add to your foods. It's an easy add.
Okay.
And you get that cheese flavor without adding actual cheese. So that's kind of the appeal for it. And you get the color, you can really kind of color your foods if you wanted to have a certain color and things like that.
So let me ask both of you this. I personally take a multivitamin every day. And I also take a little bit of extra magnesium and potassium. So YaQutullah is dropping off to go wash your hands. Because I sweat so much. What is your thought on the need for multivitamins if your diet is where it should be? And I see Ralph is on the call. I know as a physician, I don't know if you want to chime in or not, but what's your thought process on that? Because I know triathletes and runners, we're out here taking all kinds of supplements. Are they even really needed if we have a balanced diet?
If you want to know my opinion, there's literature and then there is opinions from athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you look at the literature, eating a balanced diet for the average person that is not a long distance triathlete, multivitamins do not add much that one can measure to longevity or health.
Mm-hmm.
However, folks that work out a lot, like a lot of the folks here on this call, sweat out and they sweat their minerals out. And I myself take a multivitamin because I notice that I feel better. I don't have muscle cramps and things like that when I replete my body minerals a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason for me that it makes sense for athletes to take a multivitamin, even though you cannot prove by research that it's very helpful by measuring metrics of longevity and heart disease and things that you can measure like that. So that's kind of my take, and that's kind of what I do with it. So
I totally agree, Dr. Lyons. A lot of, I'm actually going to drop off my phone, so I think
because you have both on. That's
I got feedback. Okay. It's interesting. A lot of times, what we also want to look at is electrolytes. So we have our vitamins and things like that, but endurance athletes, you're going to sweat out. Right. So you want to make sure that you replenish those electrolytes. So when we're talking about, potassium and magnesium and things like that, one person and their needs are very different than another. So if you're an athlete and you're doing major miles and you're sweating more than the average person, then naturally you want to replace that. So I think
we have different sweat rates also.
Exactly. So you want to look at
physiology is different from person to person. So
exactly. So when someone says, "Oh, you don't need a multivitamin," you have to know what specific needs that person has, and then you can adjust accordingly. Also, you want to consider if someone's vegan, then you have to adjust for what they're not getting from their diet, right? And then making sure that they're also getting the vitamins and minerals they may need from a multivitamin. So to help complement or supplement what they're not getting. So it really is going to be a kind of a personalized approach. And a lot of times, you know, when I deal with clients, I look at, hey, what do you need? Right? Because of course you're looking at NIH, you're looking at a lot of the recommendations, a lot of the evidence-based bodies that have different recommendations. You just want to make sure that you are meeting the needs of that particular person for their age, you know, their physical activity levels and things like that. And everybody is different. That's why I don't do a general across the board, because you really have to adjust for what that person individually needs.
YaQutullah, I would ask you, you know, from your point of view, I think that vegetarians and vegans don't get sufficient absorbable B12. So that's another supplement that one might consider taking. And
vitamin D is a huge one that I see in my clients. It's huge, very much because if you look at vitamin D sources, a lot of them come from animal-based sources, right? Your salmon, your eggs, things like that, outside of UV radiated mushrooms. Right? Vegans aren't necessarily eating that kind of stuff to get the vitamin D. And this is outside of sun exposure. So again, you have to really adjust and see what that individual person needs. And I take a multivitamin too. So
I do not take multivitamins.
Okay.
Or supplement.
I do not take supplements. But I did document everything that I was eating to figure out what I need to balance.
Mm-hmm.
So I did note, like, okay, what do green vegetables give me? So being not being a physician, but actually taking, counsel from my doctor, what I did need. And I documented, to your all's point, what I needed and what am I missing. And being an athlete, sweating a lot, I am also an F2C athlete. So I do take electrolytes, making sure that I put things back in. So that's why I have a lot of food, colorful food. To make sure that I'm balancing all the things that I'm just not having with the multivitamin. Not that I'm against multivitamins, I just forget to take them. So, but I find that I like to cook. So I try to add in all the different ingredients that will give me the things that I need. Some things that I try to remember to take is like I have these elderberry gummies. There's just a couple of things that I know if I don't have it in the food that I'm making, I try to do that, but I just forget to take vitamins. So I cook and I just try to make sure that, and I write down my ingredients to balance the things that I may not be getting for being a vegan. So just another perspective.
And that's a different level of discipline. For me, I have my 2 little cups. I put the supplements for one day in the cup, and then I put the next day in the cup just in case I forget to fill the first cup. And that's how I keep up with.
And I would say that I do have them handy. So if I do go off track, if I have too much pasta and I went off my regimen, I will take something because I realize that my body does need something. So I do believe in it. I just prefer to cook it.
Yeah, food first. Yeah, food first approach.
Yeah, so that's just my approach.
And that's great to be that disciplined. It definitely takes, a certain discipline to get to that level. Because when you start off, you have to learn what works for you and what you're able to do.
I fell and crashed so many times.
Food is medicine.
Food is medicine.
Food is medicine. And I recommend all the time people to move towards a plant-based diet, even if not completely, as far as they can get that way, because so many of my patients are overweight and pre-diabetic. Even when they have a right-sized weight, they have genetics that weigh in and they're pre-diabetic. I'm pre-diabetic too. So, a plant-based diet works for that.
Definitely.
Some things can be measured, with annual physical exams. You can measure vitamin D level. You can measure B12 level very easily. Your electrolytes are automatically measured, at least most of them. There are things that are not measured regularly, like selenium and things like that. But, you can be guided by your individual needs as well, too. So
there's a great resource. I'm actually going to drop a few links in the chat box. There is a resource by NIH, and it actually provides specific information on vitamins and minerals, a lot of information where there are recommendations based on kind of your age and your gender. So you guys can actually have a look at that. And earlier, Jaja was talking about a lot of herbs and spices. So I'm actually a CookSmart affiliate, and we developed a really great resource that looks at a complete spice guide. So it has information on different spices you can use with different grains or protein products and things like that. And I'm also going to drop that in the chat box so you guys can have a look at that as well. And I believe Khadijah will share this to the
I'll make
group
sure that
later.
I share it. And I'm living proof that sometimes there's nothing you can do about what you're genetically predisposed to. I'm African American and I am Cuban American, and every disease that's associated with being Caribbean and being an African American is in my family. So one of the things that I have constantly battled with is keeping my A1C normal. And I've been an athlete all my life. I've never, other than when I was pregnant, if you can be overweight when you're pregnant, I've never been overweight. My body fat is always a couple of points lower than the average for my age. I have good muscle tone. So it's some of it you really have to work at it. And especially during this time, a lot of us, our lives have changed. And even though some of us are still training, the other half of our life is more sedentary. So we have to be more conscious of what we're eating, even though we're still training. I know Guy Mills mentioned last time that he went from doing like 12,000 steps a day to doing 5,000 steps a day, and he didn't even think about it. And that's just, getting in the car, going to work, running from the parking lot to the job, and walking around the office. So these are all things that we really need to be conscious of. And so I know we have a ton of questions, and I see YaQutullah just put the links into the chat box. I want everybody to be aware of that. Go ahead, YaQutullah.
I was just going to say one more thing. It's really interesting in the day and age we are in now, teleworking, right? So we get up and take a shower and go to the next room and start work, right? So I know, right? So a lot of it, we have to make sure that we're adjusting to this change. Like, we're not getting up and getting dressed and showering necessarily and getting out to our car and then walking those extra steps. Looking at ways to adjust our lifestyle. So just outside of not just nutrition, what else are we doing to support a healthy lifestyle, right? A lot of times you really want to look at what type of relaxation or self-care techniques are we incorporating, right? This is, I believe it's World Mental Health Day today. Looking at how we adjust to that. How do we set goals? How do we prioritize rest? Your sleeping patterns have a huge impact on your weight, right? Mm-hmm. Looking at, just check your nutrition, find enjoyable ways to move, right? At home, in your neighborhood, in your backyard. Make sure that you're incorporating those other factors that are equally important. It's not just what you eat, right? It's what you're watching. It's what you're doing, your activities on a day-to-day basis, and how you're adjusting to a life of COVID and teleworking and not being as active as before. What's keeping you motivated to stay moving and to stay healthy and eat right?
Yeah. So we have about 30 minutes left. And I already have a couple of questions that I've written down that people have put in the chat box. And I also want to give people a chance to go live and ask some questions. So Ty Jones, and if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, please correct me if you're still on the call. If you can go ahead and make yourself visible if you want to and come off of mute. And she was saying she's a runner. She's trying to get into triathlons and duathlons. And I guess the gist of her question is, how should her diet change based on the fact that she's not just running? And once again, that's going to be age-based, whether you're just trying to finish or you're racing at an elite level. So go ahead and ask the young ladies. And if you have a question for me, I don't know if I can answer it, but if you have a question for me as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm about 45 years old. I've been running now for about 7 years. And just this year, I decided to switch over to try duathlon and triathlon because I have arthritis pretty much everywhere, mainly with my knees and several surgeries. So I got into the biking, which I'm really enjoying. But My diet is quite inconsistent, especially with COVID. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was eating right, working out. I felt I was in the best shape of my life, and actually got down to about 153 pounds. Right now, I'm sitting at 167. Still lower than my high school weight, but not where I want to be. And I still feel quite heavy at times when I'm out and trying to exercise and work out. So just
Jaja.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Just wanted to know about meal sizes, 5 to 6. If I need to focus more on incorporating more protein at each meal, or more complex carbs, or more fats.
You want to handle that from a position level, and I can say what changed for me for biking and the different
as an athlete. As an athlete. Yeah.
Do you want to tackle that first?
I guess what I would look at it, first of all, I would see what are your goals, right? Identify that. And then I would actually ask what are your goals as far as your macros, really looking at kind of your macronutrients, right? Assessing your current physical activity level. There's a whole nutrition assessment profile that we go through. And then we're able to come up with a plan for you. Looking at what your diet is, looking at current state, and then where you want to be. So there's several questions I would have. And then we would come up with a, kind of plan where you could start, and then we could reassess where you are, week by week, month by month, kind of see what's working and what's not working. What I usually do is some of the physician referrals that I get, I also get a patient's labs, so I can look at what their profile actually looks like, right? So we can address not just, this is where I want to be, but I'm also looking, hey, I have diabetes, or, I have, CHF. I like to look at the complete person, and then be able to really come up with a plan that will work for you.
One of the things I hear people mentioning too is weight. I don't know, maybe I'm a little loony and that's just how I function. I think especially women, and stop me if I'm going off into left field, but stop worrying about the weight. Your body will settle to where it performs the best. I'm 5'2", maybe on my tall days. And I know when they do that BMI thing, I'm always close to, I'm supposedly overweight, but I am 50 years old. I think it is a 12% body fat. So there's nothing wrong with my body composition, but on that little, stop worrying about weight. If you train the way you should train and you eat a decent diet, your body is going to settle down to the weight where it performs the best. I know at one point I was really working on trying to lean out, and I leaned out too much, and I think I dropped down to like 125 pounds. Somebody asked me, was I feeling okay? So you have to be conscious of settling to the weight where you feel most comfortable, not trying to get to a certain number. So don't worry about the weight. Worry about your body composition, how much fat you have on your body. And as you get older, I don't know if this is correct, but is it your body fat supposed to come up a little bit, isn't it? I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm just trying to give myself a little leeway.
No, that's good. That's good. It's funny because I actually work with veterans, right? And it's funny because they'll come in every so often. They have a fit test they have to take, and they got to get on the scale and they got to run a mile or whatever. And these guys are super buff. Like, these guys are muscle, right? And a lot of times they're like, oh, my BMI is, oh my God, I'm clinically obese, right? I'm like, dude, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you, because you have to realize what exactly does BMI take into consideration, right? And you have to look at the BMI doesn't necessarily look at it only looks at your weight and your height, right? So it's not necessarily looking at your lean muscle mass, right? So if your lean muscle mass is a little heavier, then you're going to tip that scale. You're going to get over the clinically obese line, right? But you have to look at other factors outside of just the BMI. You have to look at factors that are going to affect BMI as far as demographics. I mean, people of color, right? And looking at the BMI, you want to research it and say, well, what population did they actually come up to develop the BMI, right? A lot of times with the history of the BMI, they use lean white males. So you're going to use something that was based on lean white males for the entire population, right? I'm not saying just totally discredit it. I'm saying look at what it was used for initially, right? And when I talk to a lot of my women clients, my women veterans, I'm always like, dude, it's more than just a number on the scale. Don't become slave to the number on the scale. How do you feel? You know when you feel good. You know when your thighs are rubbing together and you can stand to lose a few pounds or change up your lifestyle or tweak your nutrition a little bit, right? So a lot of it, we really want to get away from the diet culture, because a lot of that is what's fueling us to say, oh my God, I need to really, what's the standard that you're striving for? Are you looking to really just be healthy? Or are you looking to look like Kim Kardashian? Like, let's be realistic in what our goals are as far as our overall health and wellness.
And I want to address her question from a triathlete perspective. So, but I think doing the planning and figuring out your goals should definitely come first. So that's why I wanted to hand it over first, because I think that's first important. But once you figure that out, going from running to 3 disciplines is a lot. It requires a lot of planning. It requires a lot of documentation. So you're saying you have a plan for your workouts. You should have a plan for your nutrition. Just like you're saying, you know what you're going to run that day, you know what you're going to cycle that day, you know what you're swimming. You should know what you're eating ahead of time. Why? Because you're going to be hungry after your workouts are over. And if you don't have a plan, you are looking for the nearest thing to stuff everything in your mouth because you didn't plan ahead. And I've posted pictures of myself with my bags and then my big lunchbox. Why? Because when I come out of that pool, where is the food? Like I said, I like to eat. So when it's all over, I need to have a plan of that good stuff. Otherwise, you're putting back into your body things are not good for you, because you're not mentally thinking. My husband always says, stop going to Costco hungry, because you keep coming back with $400 worth of groceries. Stop doing that. You need to plan out what you're eating. So just as you're putting on your plan, and just like I said, I learned from failing and falling, which wind up being successful, of me realizing, okay, now that didn't work. I need to think about, after I'm done with the workout, what are the things that I actually need to eat? Before you go work out, what should you be eating? Mm-hmm. During the workout, what should you be taking in? And then when the workout's over, what am I recovering with to help my body keep going? Because it sounds like you're not doing that full time. So you probably
and in what order? And in what order? That's right. Something too. Yes. After you train, there's a certain order that you should be eating in. You can't. You need to replace your glycogen stores first, and then go for the protein. Yeah. So those are things you need to be aware of.
There's a 4th discipline. So once you have that plan, you're figuring out what your body needs, depending on where you are in life, age, all those things are a major factor. Then you need to have a plan of what you're doing after these workouts, or you will find yourself sleeping a long time. I've called it the Katie nap often, where I wake up and I don't know where I'm at. I didn't eat things properly. I wasn't thinking about the plan, and the day is over because I worked out and I slept the rest of the day because I didn't recover and put the right things back in my body. So hopefully
I have poor pacing on my naps. They're 30 minutes, but they generally take 3 to 4 hours.
Hopefully that was helpful.
Does anybody else I don't see any additional questions in the chat. Did I miss some questions that somebody wanted to ask? Go ahead and make yourself visible on your video and turn on your mic, and feel free to ask either of us the question. And as you can see, you will be more fruitful if you ask Jaja or YaQutullah the question.
But it sounds like
or Dr. Lyons. We got a doctor in the house, y'all.
Yes. Yes.
I have a question too for you guys, for Jaja and for YaQutullah. In my area, I think that a lot of folks just don't have a good relationship to their food from a psychological standpoint. There are people that grow up eating a certain way, and those things that are in their childhood are comforting to them to eat. So I think sometimes getting a little bit more into their history, their psychological profile is helpful sometimes. Yeah. Folks are a little bit delusional, I find, about what's good and what's not good, or what they're really doing. So, and being honest with themselves is a good starting point for anyone. And if you can get someone to be as honest as possible with how they're approaching their diet, I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
It's funny because, go ahead, Jaja.
Sorry, my goal is not to torture myself. I still want to eat. So
Right.
If I think about my background, I was born in New York, but I grew up in Southern California, where I had a lot of Hispanic friends, and I had tacos and burritos all the time. I don't want to give up tacos, but how can I make that a little healthier for myself so that I'm not torturing myself and still loving other things? How can I still have things that my mom has made that may have been, I need to change that now. Not torturing myself, but still enjoying my food, still loving to cook, still loving to eat. Because when I'm done working out, I want good food. So I totally agree. There's an emotional side to it where it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, but I still want to love it so that I don't go back to eating something that's not good for me, that doesn't make me feel great.
So Jessica, I see you've made yourself live. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? And thank
Good,
you,
good.
everyone. In relationship to the emotional piece, I'm kind of going through some nutritional stuff. And one of the things that became very clear from the gentleman that's leading that is we tend to go back to when we needed the emotions of our childhood. So for an example, if when you were a kid and you did something great, your parent gave you a cookie or you got ice cream, as an adult, when you do something well, what do you go to? The cookie and the ice cream. And we have to figure out how to break that cycle. And that was really good for me. Luckily, I don't have a sweet tooth, so that wasn't one of those. But I have a salty, crunchy tooth. So I wanted to share that, but that's not why I brought up my screen for a question. I have a major problem with getting enough protein. I am a vegetarian. I've been tracking my food actually really consistently since March. And what I've noticed is I do really well right up to like the 55 grams. But in reading books like Racing Weight and all of those, they talk about what we need as endurance athletes. And technically, I should be somewhere in the 75 to 80 grams. And to be real honest with you, the way I'm doing it now, because I can't figure out how to do it from a vegetarian standpoint, is I'm doing fish, because that gives me a big boost in each meal. And I don't do fish in all meals, but I need to really get to the 20 to 25. So I'd love to get away from the pescatarian. So I'm wondering if you ladies can share ways that I can get the biggest bang for my buck out of those three major meals.
What I'd like to offer is when we do our macros, we identify a wide spectrum of proteins, and we do a core food assessment. So it's actually a resource where you see all of your proteins, and it basically tells you for each serving how much protein you get. Right. And then you're able to put something specific together from a sports nutrition perspective. So if you want, I can send it to you. It's really easy to just book a free session, and you can actually kind of get that information. At least to put together kind of where you want to go if you want to get away from pescatarian, looking at all of your protein options, identifying if you have any specific allergies. Because that's also going to affect whether or not you're able to, consume certain proteins. So really just kind of knowing what you need and identifying your, max total for that particular macronutrient.
Okay. What are you using for as your protein sources now? What are your go-tos?
Go-tos are, I do a protein shake that is 16 grams, but per container, but I up it to 1.5. So there's my 23-ish, 24 right there. the salmon and tofu, and then of course all the vegetables. But the vegetables, they don't give me enough bang for my buck.
They're not going to give you that much protein.
I know. They're giving me, if I stay totally vegetarian, I'd probably be in the 25 to 30 gram. And so the only way I'm getting to 50 right now is with those extras. And I mean, luckily I'm logging everything in FitnessPal. So
Not FitnessPal. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's giving me all of that. The other thing in FitnessPal let me know I don't feel anemic, but my God, I could be. My iron is it's like I've gone back and flipped. So I'm gonna work on the iron piece. But I mean, that's the really great thing about tracking what you eat. Mm-hmm. If you're a creature of habit, you tend to eat almost the same thing every day. So then it starts popping up.
Just ticks all the boxes.
It's so easy at that point. But yes, I'd love to do the core assessment because like I said, I have some standards. I probably eat about 25 different things a week. I may stray about 10%, 2 to 3 other types of food, but I got my core stuff and I'm good with it. I'm not feeding any kids any longer. So if I want to eat beans the whole week, I can eat beans the whole week.
Nuts and seeds and beans. I mean, there's so many different types of protein.
Quinoa, I love quinoa. That is.
If you switch up, that's why I love bowls.
I love bowls.
Add the different things to it. And I don't know if you were on for the demonstration. Like I was just showing things I put in there because I documented the things that I needed. So I needed beans, I needed the tofu, I added nutritional yeast. Like each one of those things is giving me something that I need in the morning. And if I know I had a longer workout, then after I had that, sometimes I'll have a shake to still balance it so that I can still make it through the day without crashing. So I really had to write things down. And once I got it, I was like, this is it.
Yes.
This is what works.
I think you have to be careful about iron supplements also.
Yes.
Because folks that are vegan vegetarians, iron is just less bioavailable in vegetables. So
yeah, they have heme and non-heme, and then identify.
So a mineral supplement is actually, that's one of the few things along with B12 that's useful to supplement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then looking at iron from your foods too.
Yeah.
See, I'm only getting iron to the biggest extent is probably some from the fish, but I eat a lot of spinach. So I'm picking it up there. And I'm glad that you did the tofu scramble because that is the only way I like eggs. And I've tried to remove myself from dairy. So now just looking at them, like, that looks like what my eggs used to look like. So thank you.
I needed that replacement. So I kind of figured out, and like I said, I switch it off. Sometimes it's beans, sometimes it's something else to give me what I need. So hopefully, yeah, I'm glad
that's gonna be great. I mean, if it looks like it, I'm good. Yeah. And I like nutritional yeast. So at any rate, thank you.
Okay. So one of the things I'd like to talk about too, you talked about emotional eating. One of the things that was a thing when I was a kid, you'd get a treat for doing something well. One of the things I try to do with my kids is get them a toy or do an activity instead of rewarding them with food. Like today, my daughter, she brought her math grade up. So she wanted fake nails. So she'd walk around with her fake nails. So we do that. And that, I don't know if this is the right forum to address it, but I do know, and I can't remember her name. There was a professional triathlete, Chrissy Wellington. She was very open about the fact that she got out of the sport of triathlon because of the pressure. She became anorexic. And that seems to be a common thing amongst runners, gymnasts, triathletes. I mean, I don't know if this is the right forum, but that's something too, developing a healthy attitude and eating as fuel, not for comfort and emotional satisfaction, that I think sometimes as athletes we fall into. And the other thing, going back to having to be a certain number on the scale. And I don't know, I know it impacts, if I was looking at the demographic, it impacts Caucasian women more so than African American women, but I've seen it bleed over into different cultures as well. Is that something, especially as a dietitian, that you come across, YaQutullah?
A lot of what I come across is emotional eating. There was a psychology, food as medicine class that I taught, and a lot of it was focused on, I guess, just the environment that we live in, and rewarding behaviors. Just looking at really specifically looking at food rewards instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to take a massage or I'm going to reward myself, with something that I really like, and looking at what that transition looks like. A lot of times, and I'm blessed to have this available, but what I do is I actually work with a mental health provider when some of my patients come to me, because sometimes what needs to happen is that part needs to be addressed before they even come to nutrition, because oftentimes there are underlying issues that need to be addressed, even from childhood, before you come and we talk nutrition, because sometimes that can stunt or prevent their growth, or their approach to nutrition if we haven't identified the underlying issues. So it really just depends on the person too. Jaja?
I had several instances. I don't know if they saw, and you would ask me like, why are you so tired? And I would always have to try to dissect what was going on. And when I realized I needed to make a change, and that it was with food, I realized I felt better. Sometimes something happens with the scale, but I think when we start off, we said, when you recognize what your goal is to, do a race, your goal is to feel better. The other things will fall into place. But my goal was to be healthy and to feel better. And that's why my nutrition changed. I do not, I think in the past, I used to reward myself with, we would go to Cheesecake Factory. And then when I go to sleep, I have all that other stuff and then the day is over. So it's just like, it's really a good date. I'm asleep and I'm not recovering from that. So, it was a change to like, I think the word should be an activity that we spend time together, no longer like something that's putting me out for a long time. And I figured out like a good treat for myself. But I had to change from that emotional eating because one, it was making me tired and I was losing precious time and wasn't feeling good. So if you're planning ahead, if you're really thinking about what your goals are, that will help with, and we say this often, what is your why? Yeah. The other things will fall into place. That's right. Like, why are you even doing this? You need to change your lifestyle. And there's always things that happen that winds up you thinking about your why. I think once you identify that, the other things you'll notice will start to fall into place.
And Ralph even just mentioned.
Yeah, I think your why is a good thing too. And I think another psychological tool that I help for those that are so inclined is that, the realization that a lot of healthy behavior and healthy diets follow your athletic goals. So if you have something else that leads you ahead of healthy choices in your diet, it's very useful. A lot of folks lose a little weight because they want to get faster and not left behind on the bike, or, or left behind on the run. So their choices are not just about starving, but about eating healthy choices, and it eventually evolves to something of a science for an individual. So I think that's a helpful psychological tool you can use for folks that are inclined.
Improving overall performance, and that's why it's so important to set goals ahead of time. What's your motivation for doing what you're doing, and identifying that, because that is what's going to carry you through. When you hit those hard days, you got to remind yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I in this in the beginning?
This has been amazing. I know that YaQutullah and I myself need to drop off. Yeah, we need to drop off. Our evening prayer is about to be out, but I'm going to go ahead and let you drop off. I'm the one who did the poor planning. Forgot that. But thank you so much, YaQutullah. I'm going to make sure that her information is available. And her website is available. She is a licensed dietitian, and she can do consults remotely if you're really trying to get a hold of your nutrition and your nutrition planning. And I would like for Jaja to do her own closeout and let us know how we can contact her. If Nikise is on the call, please show yourself and join your partner in crime, the Exposed Vegan. I think Nikise came up with that name.
Well, the way it came up is we had different names, and we realized these are just things that we don't talk about enough, that we just don't share enough, and we just determined, like, we need to expose all this. We need to share more. And so that's really where the name came from, Exposed Vegan. It was just, Nikis often talks about her journey through menopause, and I've talked about my arthritis and how I still run through it, and how I was just avoiding pills and shots and so many things. So we were just exposing all the things that we've learned that women just don't talk about enough, and that we don't share enough. Sometimes we're just ashamed to share that we're at a certain age and some things need to change if we want to go to the bathroom. There's just different things that we wanted to expose and talk about. So to stay in touch with myself and Nikis, you can find us at exposedvegan.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on our Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel. You can follow us on LinkedIn. And we're very excited that our storefront grand opening is going to be on November 1st. We have a bike and run before that. We're going to do a ribbon cutting ceremony. And then everyone that pre-orders will have special gifts. So we're really excited about that. And then after that, we will be a few months down the road, which is in progress right now. We'll have some food trucks around Charlotte. We really want to share, starting with the Charlotte community, just everything that we've learned. And we both love to cook, and we want to share that. So we want to have good food everywhere. We've noticed that when you're done with a race, the first thing you see is pizza. And so there's just things that we want to share and that we want to see once we're done, to keep the African-American community, just to start with us first. We've just been learning of how we've been suffering during this pandemic, and we want to share with so many others. So that's how you can keep in contact with us. And we love all the support that we've been getting so far. So thank you.
And see, now I'm reverse stalking. You said you were stalking me. Now I'm reverse stalking. I am so amazed about the people who have surrounded me and supported me as I've become a triathlete. And you can see I can have 2 invited guests, and Ralph was able to provide input. And I see a plethora of names. If I wanted to call them out, they could provide input. And I want to thank you so much for giving of yourself and sharing with the community. I do these